The scream came first, then the sprinkler chorus. A wall of mist erupted along my property line and painted the HOA president, head to visor, in brilliant blueberry theater dye. She froze on my lawn like a crime scene silhouette in tennis whites while my speakers chirped in a pleasant automated voice, "Welcome to the non-easement zone." The walking club behind her slid to a stop, leaving neon footprints across the grass like runway lights. Someone's golden retriever shook itself, spattering blue droplets across 3 pairs of designer leggings. A woman in the back shrieked and dropped her phone. The sound echoed off the houses like a car alarm in a parking garage. I'm Trevor Hail. I keep a low profile in Maple Quay Estates, a neighborhood with ornamental trees and weaponized newsletters. My hobbies are grilling once a week, minding my roses, and pretending the HOA doesn't exist. I've lived here for 8 years, paid my dues on time, never painted my house an unapproved color, and kept my garbage cans in the garage except on collection day. I thought that would be enough. The HOA, however, is embodied by Pamela Driscoll, a visor enthusiast who files complaints in serif fonts and calls herself the conduit of community standards. She's been president for 4 years and runs the board like a small dictatorship. She hates my yard because it's the only uninterrupted corner lot in the development. To Pamela, that means public shortcut. To me, it means grass I mow diagonally like a meditation. The property is a 1/4 acre of Kentucky bluegrass that I overseed every fall and edge with mathematical precision. It's my pride. It's also apparently Pamela's personal highway. The trampling began as incidental passage. 1 or 2 morning joggers cutting the corner to shave 10 seconds off their route. Then it escalated. Joggers, strollers, dogs, and one guy wheeling a cooler that left tracks like a runway at O'Hare. I counted 47 distinct foot traffic incidents in 1 week alone. My grass started showing wear patterns, brown trails forming where the soil compacted. Every time I posted a small, "Please use sidewalk" sign, polite and professionally printed, it vanished overnight, replaced by Pamela's laminated flyer that read, "Historic Community Footpath," in aggressive Helvetica. I checked the plats at my office during lunch. No such thing exists. No easement, no right-of-way, no recorded access of any kind going back to when the development was platted in 1998. Soon, she escalated to official citations delivered in cream envelopes with the HOA seal. Grass impedes community flow. Hostile ornamental edging, which referred to the brick border I'd installed to define my flower beds. And my personal favorite, fence aura, which apparently is a crime when you don't even have a fence. The citation claimed my psychological barrier of property ownership creates pedestrian anxiety. I read that one 3 times. She scheduled walkability Wednesdays that deliberately cut across my corner like it owed them rent. 20 to 30 people, every week, trampling in formation. Doorbell footage captured her telling a group of kids, with the earnest tone of someone explaining gravity, "Lawns are like air. They belong to everyone." Another clip showed her instructing a new neighbor, with sweeping hand gestures, "The Hale property is a transitional space. We all share it." I watched those clips multiple times, each viewing more baffling than the last. I'm polite by nature. I wave at neighbors. I don't complain about barking dogs or Christmas lights in February. I help jumpstart cars and loan out my ladder. But I'm also the county surveyor and registrar of plats. The person who literally maps the actual easements Pamela pretends to understand. I know property law the way she knows the Pantone color of her visor, which is Coral Reef 16 to 1546. And yes, she's told people at neighborhood barbecues. I tried reasoning with her first. I invited her to my office, showed her the official plat maps, explained the legal definition of an easement. She listened with a smile that never reached her eyes and said with patronizing patience, "Trevor, not everything is about paperwork. This is about community spirit." I pointed out that community spirit doesn't give legal right to trespass. She stood up, smoothed her skirt, and said lightly, "We'll see what the board thinks." The next citation arrived 2 days later, claiming my aggressive documentation obsession demonstrates antisocial tendencies. Pamela, drunk on cul-de-sac power, decided subtlety was overrated. She hired the HOA's landscaper to formalize the path. They showed up on a Saturday morning at 7:30 with string lines and a sod cutter, stepped over my posted signs, and began carving a pale scar across my grass. I walked outside in my bathrobe, coffee in hand, and asked them politely to stop. The crew looked uncomfortable. One guy actually apologized and said quietly, "Look man, we're just doing what we were hired for." But Pamela emerged from behind them like a sitcom villain, waving a photocopy of a legacy easement, so blurry it looked like a Rorschach test. She informed me with icy satisfaction that the neighborhood had historical pedestrian rights, and I was in violation of community trust. Her voice carried across the street. Neighbors came out on porches. I told her calmly that no such easement exists. She ignored me. I told her I'd call the police. She smiled, the kind of smile people use when they think they've already won, pulled out her phone, and called 911 first. She declared with a theatrical gasp that I was blocking public access to a heritage corridor, and that I was behaving erratically and possibly unstable. The dispatcher sounded tired and asked her to stay on the line. As the sod cutter's blade bit into my lawn, peeling back a strip of green like a bad haircut, my buried surprise woke up. Last spring, anticipating exactly this kind of shenanigan, I'd done my homework. I spent 3 weekends installing motion-activated sprinklers fed by a rain barrel, tied to pressure mats and edgeline lasers calibrated to trigger at 15 pounds of pressure. All completely legal, all disclosed to the county as an irrigation system upgrade with full permits. I also added a gentle PA system for audible warnings, the kind used in parking garages. The waters dyed with food-grade UV blue theater tint, the kind they use in stage productions and water parks. Harmless, approved by the FDA, launders out after a day in the wash, glows delightfully under black light. The mats recorded weight, gait patterns, and timestamps with millisecond precision. Discrete garden cameras, positioned to watch my roses and document their growth, also happened to capture faces and the sod cutter's HOA logo in 4K resolution. Everything was motion-activated, battery-backed, and stored to the cloud in real time. When the police officers arrived, Pamela, now cerulean from hairline to hemline, was vibrating with rage. Blue water dripped from her visor onto her tennis shoes. She pointed at me with a dripping finger and declared in a shaking voice, "Assault with a chemical agent." One officer, a stocky guy with sergeant stripes, looked at her, looked at me in my bathrobe, and sighed heavily. I calmly offered the officers 3 things. First, the MSDS sheet for the theater dye, printed and laminated, showing it was non-toxic and food-grade, approved for direct skin contact. Second, the product bottle itself, still half full, with the manufacturer's label clearly visible. Third, my deed, showing clear ownership boundaries, lot lines, and setbacks. Then I unrolled county maps on the hood of the squad car, the official ones with embossed seals. No recorded easement. No prescriptive right-of-way. No variance, no exception, nothing. Just my lot and a public sidewalk 3 feet away, 5 feet wide, accessible, well-maintained, and completely ignored. I pointed to the survey markers at my property corners, still visible in the grass. The blurry legacy paper Pamela kept waving like a flag? I recognized it immediately. It was an old sample form from our county website, a template we use for teaching purposes in surveyor training classes. Unaltered except for a sharp line someone had drawn to make it look official. I pulled up the original PDF on my phone and showed the officers. They looked at the paper. They looked at Pamela. They looked at each other. The eyebrows of both officers staged a union walkout. By Monday morning, the county attorney, who happens to sit 2 offices down from me, filed for a temporary restraining order stopping the HOA from entering my property pending a full hearing. The police cited Pamela for criminal trespass, vandalism for the sod damage, and false reporting for the 911 call. The HOA board, sensing legal apocalypse and skyrocketing insurance premiums, called an emergency meeting for Wednesday night. I wasn't invited, but I showed up anyway with a rolling projector like a substitute teacher with receipts. I had drone orthophotos showing foot traffic patterns over 6 months. I had recorded plats going back 40 years to the original development. I had the vanished, historic footpath, spoiler, never recorded anywhere in county history or in any municipal records. And I had high-definition footage of Pamela directing the sod crew while lecturing about easement vibes and the spirit of community access, and how property is a social construct. The video had audio. Crystal clear audio. At one point she said, and I quote, "Sometimes you have to make your own easements." When she stood up during the meeting and said with absolute confidence, "It's common law." Implied dedication through prolonged public use, I switched to my favorite slide. Case law from our state Supreme Court, printed in 18-point font, that says explicitly, mere tolerance of trespass does not create an easement. No, it isn't. Use the sidewalk. The room went silent except for the projector fan. Someone coughed. Another person shifted in their seat. Pamela's face went through several colors, none of them flattering, settling on a shade that matched her ruined tennis outfit. Insurance representatives, two grim people in gray suits, looked at the sod invoice, then at Pamela, then at a spreadsheet titled Premiums, Next Year, with numbers that made the treasurer gasp. The HOA's attorney, who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else, possibly on fire, suggested a consent decree. HOA pays damages, replaces turf with premium sod and reseeding, reprints all covenant documents with actual legal review from a real estate attorney, and the entire board attends a 6-hour boundary law training seminar. The crowd, exhausted homeowners who just wanted to avoid a lawsuit and special assessment fees, clapped. Someone said, "Finally," loud enough to echo. Another person said, "Thank God," under their breath. 2 weeks later, we stood in civil court. The judge, a patient man in his 60s who'd clearly seen everything the suburbs had to offer, reviewed the evidence. Security footage, expert testimony from my office, the fake easement document which he held up to the light and squinted at, and Pamela's 911 call recording, which honestly didn't help her case. When the recording played her voice saying, "possibly unstable," the judge's expression didn't change, but his pen stopped moving. He gave Pamela 12 months probation, 120 hours of community service maintaining the public sidewalk she insisted my lawn was, including litter removal and snow clearing, a no trespass order covering my property and a 50-foot buffer zone, and restitution for the sod surgery, lawn repair, installation costs, legal fees, and my time as an expert witness. The total came to $6,347. Her face went the color of old milk as the judge read the terms. She opened her mouth twice, closed it, and finally whispered with a trembling voice, "But I was protecting the neighborhood. I was doing what was right for everyone." The judge looked at her over his reading glasses and said simply, "No, ma'am, you weren't. You were trespassing, vandalizing property, and filing false police reports. That's not leadership. That's not community service. That's criminal behavior." He set the payment plan at $200 per month. Pamela's hand shook as she signed the judgment papers, the pen leaving a jagged signature across the bottom line.